Swordcery is a roguelike melee-based action RPG by developers Temple Door Games, and these are my first impressions of the demo version of the game that is available right now on Steam. You play at the moment as an unnamed protagonist with yet an unknown story because, well, you know this is just a demo, as it focuses more on letting you enjoy the gameplay rather than telling you about the background of the character or the story behind the adventure you now find yourself on, which in my opinion is perfectly fine. You find yourself dropped into a randomly generated map where a single random sword drops right in front of you. You pick up the sword and head through one of the doors to begin your adventure. The game plays like a cross between Hades and Dead Cells. Before entering a new area or room, the door has a large icon in front of it, indicating what the reward will be if you complete it. You will face various types of enemies in these rooms, from enemies that will heal their allies, to those that will charge directly towards you, or to those that will attack you from a distance. None of these enemies by themselves prove to be too difficult, but if there are a number of them in the area that you are in, then you need to be a little more cautious as to who you take out first. So don't just think this is some easy, cute looking kids game, as it's really not, as it can be pretty challenging at times. There are also various traps scattered around the area that you need to navigate your way past or around, such as spike pits or spear traps. These add to the challenge when facing the various foes you will come up against. These traps can also damage the enemy as well as yourself, so they can help as well as hinder you. Once you have completed an area, you will be rewarded with an item of some sorts. These can range from new weapons, relics, ethereal reinforcements, celestial flasks and money, which of course then increase your ability to progress further throughout the level, to eventually reach the final room containing a boss. The combat is fun yet basic, as it's primarily your typical hack and slash style of gameplay, but with a twist. The twist being that each sword has its own special magical attack, aka its own form of sorcery, hence the name of the game, Swordcery, aka sword and sorcery. Now your sword is your primary weapon, and there are many different swords to obtain and choose from. Each sword has a different look and feel to it, as some are slow yet heavy hitting, while some are fast and very nimble. With the vast array of swords that are available to you, this means you should be able to find something that fits your playstyle. Now each sword has its own magical or sorcery effect, which again gives each sword its own unique feel and playstyle. There are swords that can allow you to set your blades on fire, which in turn adds additional damage to your attacks. Or there are swords that can allow you to do a charged and powerful lunging attack. Again, there are so many to choose from that this helps keep the combat both fun and interesting. Using the magical aspect of your sword depletes your magic as indicated by the blue bar at the top left hand corner of the screen, alongside both the red bar for your health and the green bar for your stamina. This just means you can't consistently use and spam your magic abilities non-stop, as this would then lead to you being potentially somewhat overpowered. However, when not in use, your magic recharges pretty quickly. I also really like the fact that the game doesn't take itself too seriously. For example, one set of swords are actually scissors, and whilst they are effective as weapons, you can't run with them. As you know, you shouldn't run with scissors. That just made me laugh, and I thought it was a nice, humorous touch to add to the game. And there are numerous little things like this that you will no doubt notice. Killing enemies along the way also have the chance to drop weapons, items, money, ethereal reinforcements and celestial flasks as well as health, which again helps improve your character. Money allows you to buy a health potion or additional swords from the shop that you will reach at some point during the level. Sharpening stones increase the effectiveness of your weapons by increasing your damage, whereas relics act as a secondary weapon with a limited use ability that has a cooldown effect on it, so they cannot be just spammed and reused over and over. For example, one such relic is an American football, which allows you to use it as a ranged weapon, therefore being able to hit potential problematic enemies from a distance. Another is a giant bear trap that can be placed on the ground to damage and hinder enemies that are trying to approach you, Ethereal reinforcements are upgrades that can add abilities to either all of your swords or to only specific types of swords. For example, you may get an ability called Razor's Edge that adds a bleeds effect to your enemies, but this may only be applied to your short swords and katanas. Or you may get the ability Vampiric Finish, which drains a small amount of life from defeated enemies to help you regain some health. Celestial Flasks give you the option to increase either your health, magic or stamina, and I for one always try to increase my health pool, as health for me is one of the issues I have with the game, and I will address that later. The controls are relatively simple to master. The right bumper button is your light attack and the right trigger is your heavy attack. The left bumper button is your block and the left trigger is your magical attack. The Y button is the interact button and the A button is your dodge ability, whilst the X button activates and uses any relic that you may have acquired. You can lock onto the enemies with the right thumbstick, and by pressing either left or right on the D-pad, this enables you to switch between the swords that you have acquired. Pressing down on the D-pad accesses your inventory, where you can see what weapons and items you have equipped. The map is located in the top right hand corner of the screen, and by pressing up on the D-pad, a larger version of the map can be accessed. You also have the ability to remap your keys if the default settings are not to your liking, which is always much appreciated. Now whilst I'm very much enjoying the demo of this game, it's not perfect, and there are a couple of issues that I personally feel need slightly tweaking, and one major aspect of the game that I think could and maybe should be possibly changed. Please note these are just my personal opinions from what I've played so far, and I know this is only a demo, so there are areas and aspects of the game that I am unaware of and have not yet seen, so anything I can and do say here may already be under consideration or being worked upon. So starting with the minor tweak, the interact button when using a controller was not very responsive, or did not seem to work at times. I normally had to press it 2 or 3 times for it to do what it was supposed to do. This mainly happened when trying to pick up an item, such as a sword, or any other form of item in general, but it also occurred whilst trying to open doors when trying to get into the next area of the game, albeit not as often. I tried this with 2 different Xbox controllers and I had the same issues, yet when I tried it with the keyboard I had no issues at all. Now moving on to the major issue I had with the game, and again this is only my opinion and people may disagree with me, but for me the biggest issue was the lack of control over my health, as you have no way of self-healing, and instead have to rely on health potions dropping randomly after killing an enemy. I personally don't like this kind of RNG when it comes to your health management in this style of game, and for what it's worth, I'd recommend it be changed. Since the areas in the game are randomly generated, you can find yourself in areas of the game that are both easy or more challenging to complete, and if it's the latter, you can find yourself in a situation where you will lose a lot of health, and if no health potions drop, you will inevitably die, as you have no means to regain your health. In my opinion, you need to have at least some say as to when and where you can heal. This was never more apparent than when facing the boss of the area I was in. I went into my first fight with the boss at 100% health, and of course I lost. I went into the second fight with the boss with only 25 health points, and you guessed it, I died. Now I have no issue with losing, however this boss was quite tough, and if you're saying I have to potentially beat every boss in the game without using any means to heal myself, then that's going to turn a lot of people off. If I'd had say 2 or 3 health flasks, it would have given me at least a fighting chance, as well as some more time to experience the fight, such as learning the mechanics that the boss does, and answering questions like, can I block this attack, which weapon works best, etc. But I never really had that opportunity. Instead I just died and respawned back at the beginning of the game, having to start the process all over again. Now I could just not have opened the door that led to the boss fight, and instead went back and cleared every other room I'd not been into, to possibly make myself more powerful by increasing my weapon sharpness and my weapon reinforcements, and that would be a fair point. But once again, we would run into the possibility of potentially dying whilst doing this, due to the lack of health potions. For example, there were times where I had full health, yet health potions were dropping all over the place, but I could not pick them up and store them away to use at a later date. So at that point in the game, they were effectively useless to me, as I had no need for them. However, there were times when I really needed a health potion and they never dropped for me. And of course, I eventually died. I'd much rather have a limited use health potion similar to what is used in Dead Cells and Dark Souls, as this would then eliminate the randomness surrounding your health. So instead of hoping for a health potion to drop, you would know exactly where you stood in regards to your health. Not being able to use any form of healing potion during combat, to me causes player frustration, and even in very challenging and punishing games such as Dead Cells and Dark Souls, they give you some way of healing, but how you manage the use of that healing is on you. I can see this becoming a point of frustration for some players, and it could put a lot of people off from persevering with the game, which really would be a shame, as the game is good. So in conclusion, the moment I started playing the demo, I knew I was going to enjoy myself, as this is my kind of game, and I'd highly recommend everyone giving the demo a go, as it's actually a lot of fun. However, the issue surrounding the healing side of the game, as I've previously mentioned, does somewhat concern me, as I do feel it could become a problem for some people, unless it's changed or refined in some way. I do remain optimistic though, as for the most part, the game is really enjoyable, and it genuinely has the potential of becoming a must-have indie title if they get it right. Anyway guys, this was my first impressions of Swordcery. Let me know if you've played the demo and what you think of it. As always, thanks for watching, please comment, like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.